Hey friends, Bobby Lanyon here, Jack's dad. Great to see you. No one said it would be easy, but it sure can be rewarding parenting kids with special needs. And part of everything that we try to do here on this program and in our book and on our website and all the communication that we have is we want to encourage families who have someone with special needs in their family to live life to their fullest. Today's guest accomplishes that hands down. His name is Dr. Gary Chapman. He is the author of The Five Love Languages. You may have heard about it. You've probably read it. You've probably heard someone talk about it. In fact, you probably know what your primary love language is. Just recently, I got to catch up with him on a family life cruise that my wife and I went on, and he was on there sharing about his new book called When Sorry Is Not Enough, and essentially outlines five apology languages, which are expressing regret, accepting responsibility, making restitution, genuinely repenting, and requesting forgiveness. We're going to get him on the line here. We're going to have a chance to have a real great conversation with him about why this book, why the five apology languages, and then you're going to have a chance to get one of his books. So stay tuned to the end of the program, and we'll share with you how you can get one of these new books just put out by Dr. Gary Chapman and Dr. Jennifer Thomas called When Sorry Is Not Enough. Let's see if we can get him on the line. Gary, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Oh man, it is so good to see you. It was such a pleasure the first time I actually got to shake your hand and even chat with you was just 2 or 3 months ago when we went on a cruise, the Family Life 10th anniversary cruise.
That was
Um,
nice.
it was gorgeous, and I'm so glad we got it in before the coronavirus.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was wonderful.
So now I know your time is really precious, but I have one just question I want to start with. We call this series the Virtual Coffee Series with Jack's dad. That's me because everyone knows Jack. I just go by Jack's dad. My favorite coffee mug that I have today is actually my dad mug. And it says guidance, support, and
Oh,
love.
I like I
And
like that.
around the rim, it actually says, I have chosen him that he may charge his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord. Genesis 18:19. And one of the reasons I really love this mug is that it actually has a top so that it'll keep my coffee or my tea warmer for longer because there are many, many days where I'll have 4 or 5 cups of coffee, but really only drink about two because they just get too cold. So I wanted to ask you, share with us the mug that you brought to the conversation.
Well, it's the absolutely newest mug that I have. Now, I've
Okay.
got scores of mugs because all over the world, people give you a mug. But this is the newest one. And actually, our church just released this. It's got a picture of our city, Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
And then it says Life Connected. And over
Wonderful.
here it has the name of the church. And the
Okay.
reason I like it is that message, Life Connected,
Sure.
because I've spent my life trying to help people get connected.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
really, this is, I think, the heart of what the church is all about. It's
Mm-hmm.
getting people connected to God and connected to each other.
Yeah, and what a great intro to even the conversation that we're going to have today. We're actually going to talk about the most recent book that you've just released with Dr. Jennifer Thomas, and it's called "When Sorry Is Not Enough," and the five apology languages. And we'll get to it in just a moment, but many people will know Dr. Gary Chapman for the five love languages and we talk about them all the time. We talk about, hey, my tank's just a little empty right now. Like, can we go for a walk? Or and so it's a good measuring stick for me and for my wife Michelle and for our kids. We talk about it a lot, but One question I've always wanted to ask you is what actually started the journey of the five love languages for Dr. Gary Chapman?
Well, I'll tell you the very start. Couple came in to see me in my office. I had not met them. I didn't know them. And they sat down, and the wife said, Dr. Chapman, before we start, let me tell you a little bit about us. She said, we don't argue. We don't believe in arguing. We don't have any money problems. And she went on with two or three more positive things. And I was beginning to wonder, did they come in here to show me, what a good marriage they have? Then she started crying. And she said, the problem is I just don't feel any love coming from him. We're like two roommates living in the same house. We're civil, but there's nothing going on between us. He does his thing and I do my thing.
Wow.
She said, I'm just empty. And I just don't know how long I can go on like this. Well, I looked over at him and he said, I don't understand her. I do everything I can to show her that I love her. And she says she doesn't feel love. I said, well, what do you do to show that you love her? He said, I get home from work before she does, so I start the evening meal. And sometimes I have it ready when she gets home. If not, she'll help me. And then we eat together, and said, then I wash the dishes. And he said, on Thursday night, I vacuum the floor. And he said, every Saturday, I wash the car and mow the grass and help her with the laundry. And he went on. I was beginning to wonder, what does this woman do?
What does she want? Man.
And he said, I do all these things, and she says she doesn't feel loved. I looked back at her, and she started crying again. And she said, Dr. Chapman, he's right. He's a hardworking man. She said, but we don't ever talk. We haven't talked in 20 years. He's always mowing the grass, washing the dishes, vacuuming the floors. And after that, I heard similar stories over and over in my office, and I knew there had to be a pattern to what I was hearing. So eventually, I took time to sit down and read several years of notes that I made when I was counseling, and asked myself, when someone said, I feel like my spouse doesn't love me, what did they want? What were they complaining about? And their answers fell into 5 categories. And I later called them the 5 love languages and started using it in my counseling. And sometimes when I would help people discover each other's language and challenge them to go home and try it, they would come back in 3 weeks and say, Gary, this is changing everything.
Wow.
The whole for now. So that's where it all started, is in the counseling office. Yeah.
Wow. I'd never heard that story. And it just goes to show that, principles never change. They can just be applied in different ways. And so since then, the 5 love languages and then the 5 love languages for children. And then even more recently, you co-authored a book with Jolene Philo, Abundant Love for Special Needs Families. She's also going to be a special guest in our series.
She's a great lady.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. And then just most recently is When Sorry Is Not Enough. So what was in your mind, the transition then from, hey, we've got the love languages and almost the positive side of people expressing love for one another in practical and ways where their partner is feeling loved and their tank is being filled. Now, this seems like the negative side of the coin.
Yeah, I'll tell you how this started. A counselor in my office, my co-author, made an appointment to see me. I knew her kind of at a distance. And she came in and she said, Gary, I've been using the 5 love languages for years in my counseling. It's been so helpful. She said, but I believe that people also have an apology language. I said, what do you mean by that? She said, I mean that what one person considers to be a sincere apology is not what another person considers to be a sincere apology. And I think people are missing each other in their efforts to apologize. Yep. And as soon as she said it, I resonated with it. Because for years, they've been in my office, and wife would say, well, I would forgive him if he would just apologize. And he would say, I did apologize. And she'd say, you didn't apologize. I told you I was sorry. That's not an apology.
Wow,
so I thought she had something, and she wanted to write a book with me on the topic. And I said, well, we've got to do some research and let's make sure it's true.
Yeah.
And so we asked thousands of people all over the country two questions. When you apologize, what do you typically say or do?
Mm-hmm.
Second question. When someone apologizes to you, what do you want to hear them say and do?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And their answers fell into five categories. I promise you, we were not looking for five. I like five, but they fell into five categories. And we said, well, let's just call them the five languages of apology.
Yeah.
So that's how this came about.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's so neat. Like the mug that you literally just have in your hand is life connected, and five love languages is all about life connected. The five apology language is all about that restoration piece of and reconciliation piece of life connected. So we actually had a lot of conversation with about this subject and about this very topic of the five languages of apology on the cruise. It was my wife and I, three of her siblings and their spouses, and my wife's parents. So there was 10 of us total, and we made a point each night to get together for dinner. That was like the one time when we could get together and just at least see each other. We didn't have any of our kids. It was such a wonderful, wonderful time. And the night that you spoke on the cruise, we actually went around the table with the 10 of us, and we said, what apology language do you feel that you have, and is it different from the apology of how you think you express apology? Yeah. And Dr. Chapman, one thing that came out, and I'd like you to get your feedback on it, is it was very situational specific. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do think, there are different kind of offenses in a relationship. Some things are just small. Maybe you accidentally bump into someone and you say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Well, that's all you need to say.
Right.
It's no big deal. But other things, go to the other extreme, would be like sexual unfaithfulness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is huge. And in between there are different levels of offense. That is, the person is hurt more deeply by certain things than they are other things. And that's when the apology languages become important. Because when you really have had a fracture in the relationship, there's an emotional distance, there's an emotional block between the two of you. And if you don't deal with it, if you don't remove the emotional block, then you'll have another encounter and another block, and you build a wall. And people do build walls between them because they don't deal with their failures. And that's why I say that one of the essentials to having a long-term healthy marriage, you have to deal with your failures. You have to apologize and then forgive so that you remove the barrier. Now the relationship goes forward. So, yeah, I think there are different levels of offense, and they may call for different expressions of the languages. Some things you may use all five if you've really, really, really offended the person. But typically there's one that's most meaningful to you in most situations.
Right. So, what I hear you saying, and just confirm if I'm correct, because I'm learning just as much as what our viewers are. It really isn't so much about me saying sorry or me trying to cover, make amends. I'm really trying to communicate that I am truly sorry for what I've done to you. And it's not so much about how I want to say that I'm sorry. It's more that I want to convey effectively my remorse for what I've offended to you, and that I really want my relationship to get back on good ground with you, and for you to receive that message.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You see, here's the question we're asking if someone's apologizing to us. What we're asking in our mind is, are they sincere? Because if we judge them to be sincere, then it's easier to forgive. But we judge sincerity based on what we consider to be a sincere apology. And most of the time, we learn what we consider to be an apology from our parents. The parent said, honey, no, 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 no. Don't push your sister down the stairs. Go tell her you're sorry. So little Johnny says, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's 23 and married. If he offends his wife, he'll say, I'm sorry.
Yep.
So we kind of learned this from our parents growing up, but we had different parents. So we come to adulthood with different ideas on what a sincere apology looks like.
And it's so amazing that you would say that, because you think that we would instinctively know that, because hey, we come from different families, a different upbringing in finances, different upbringing in what restaurants we went to, different upbringings in what sports we did. I mean, I grew up in Australia, and I didn't wear shoes hardly ever. And and now that I'm in America, it took me a little while to wrap my head around why my wife always said to our kids, if you're going outside, put your shoes on. I was like, it's grass. Like, you don't need shoes on. Like, but we come from polar, different, opposite
Yep.
worlds
Yep.
that we have recognized that we are so different in so many different areas. You would think that saying sorry, because we do it so often, we offend
Yep.
each other so often and every day, that we should know this. But it's just so amazing that you and Dr. Thomas would just bring it out. It just goes to show that we're not as smart as what we think we are.
Yeah, we really found this to be very, very helpful. And now that the book is out, couples are finding it to be helpful because they look back and realize, yeah, we've been missing each other in our apologies.
Mm.
You tell me you're sorry, but that doesn't hack it with me. I mean, that's awfully easy for you to say, but you don't know what you did. You don't know how much that hurt me. So the person is doing what they know to do in apologizing, but it's not connecting with the other person.
Mm.
And you understand that there's at least these 5 ways to apologize. And then you ask each other, honey, what makes you, how do you judge the apology? And we're likely going to find out we have different ideas. And so then let's learn how to communicate our apology in a way that will communicate what we're trying to communicate. And that is that we do regret. We are sorry. We do want to make this right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of that is also being vulnerable, actually taking the time. One thing I really love about this whole quarantine phase that we're in right now is that the pace of life has slowed down.
You're right.
And I actually really enjoy it. I mean, Dr. Chapman, I may have gone overboard. We've got chickens, we've got honeybees, we're building a sheep shed in the back. I mean, I may have gone a little overboard, but I love it. Like, this is kind of the pace of life that I feel like I grew up with, and
Yeah.
it's slower, and so we actually have more time to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And so, which allows us to be more vulnerable, because we're sitting and talking just our family. Like, it's not even our extended family. It's Michelle, me, and our 3 boys. And it's wonderful. Like, I'm really enjoying it. Here's a question I do have for you is, if I make a sincere apology and I'm really like I'm pretty in tune to my kids. I'm pretty in tune to maybe it's my extended family or even my wife. Like, I pretty much know how they think. What if that apology doesn't get a response of forgiveness, and there's still anger on the other side of that
Yeah.
relationship?
Well, apology alone does not restore a relationship. There has to be a response to the apology.
Mm-hmm.
And the healthy response is to forgive. And if we forgive, it means that we pardon them. I'm not going to make you pay for this the rest of your life. I'm going to pardon you. And I'm going to remove the barrier between us so that our relationship can go forward. But we can't make the other person forgive us. So we apologize, and we're doing our part. We're apologizing. Now they have to decide, because forgiveness is a decision. They have to decide to forgive or not to forgive. If they don't forgive, the barrier stays there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go away, and the relationship really doesn't go forward. And that's why I'm really big, and the Bible's really big on this whole thing about forgiveness. It says we forgive others as we've been forgiven. And I don't think you can have a long term healthy marriage if you're not willing to apologize and then willing to forgive. But it is a choice. But I think if you're the one who's been offended and your spouse or anyone else is apologizing to you, but not in a way that really connects with you,
Mm-hmm.
if you understand that there are five different apology languages
Mm,
and you know what they are, it makes it easier for you to forgive them, even if they're not speaking your language,
sure.
because you say to yourself, okay, they're saying, I'm sorry. That's not really what I want to hear, but I know that is one way to apologize. So I'm going to give them credit for it. And
Sure.
we lean toward forgiving, and taking them seriously.
Yeah, there's a Dr. Emerson Eggerichs writes some fantastic books about cycles in relationships, and he actually says, whoever considers himself to be the most mature should be the first one to move.
Yeah,
and
that's
and
good.
that applies right here, and vice versa. What you just mentioned, like if you do apologize and if you do try to do it in a sincere way, if you're not getting the forgiveness, hey, there's always tomorrow, and you can try another one tomorrow, and you can just keep going down the list of trying which mode of apology is most received. Dr. Chapman, I want to give away some of your books. We're going to give away 5 of your books, and for those of you watching, you guys are going to be absolutely blessed by reading Dr. Chapman's book and Dr. Thomas's book, When Sorry Is Not Enough. Just simply hang on to the end, and we'll put our information up there, and then you can respond. And we want to give away 5 of these books to really, as a token from Dr. Chapman and from Jack's dad, that we want your relationships to be really fulfilled. Dr. Chapman, your book is available anywhere. It's on Amazon. That's probably the quickest way to get it. Father's Day is right around the corner. And so if someone, I'd like to use your expertise as you know, technically you're a psychologist, but you are so much more than that. You are a friend to anyone who comes up and gets to spend some time with you. If someone is not speaking to their father, what advice would you offer?
I think you look back on the relationship and you ask yourself, where have I failed in this relationship? Because by nature, we blame our father. He's the one that treated me. He's the one that left me. He's the one that did this.
Mm,
And it's okay. I mean, maybe he's 95% of the problem, but somewhere along the line, you probably failed also. So if you ask God to show you where you have failed in this relationship, and then he'll tell you, and you apologize to God, and then go to your father and say, Dad, I know we haven't been close for a long time. And I've realized that there's a couple of ways, or maybe more, in which I feel like I failed you. And you just tell him what they are, and say, I'm just asking you if you'll forgive me for those things.
mm,
And your behavior may well touch his heart, and he may come back and say, I'll forgive you, but you got to forgive me of a bunch of stuff. And he pours out his heart to you because he may have had a
mm,
lot of feelings wanting to get back together himself.
yeah.
So somebody has to take the initiative. And as you mentioned, the most mature person is the one that's most likely to take it, even though they may not be the most guilty one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing more fulfilling than vibrant relationships, open and honest, and it makes friendships, it makes relationships so enjoyable. And Dr. Chapman, God has used you in such incredible ways in our society to be one that just shines that light on saying, hey, this is one way that God has designed us as people to show love, to receive forgiveness. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for your time today, because it's been, man, I love it. Like, um, I I showed the picture of you and Michelle and I when we were on the cruise, and that was probably the highlight of our time together. So, Dr. Chapman, happy Father's Day coming up,
Oh, thank
and
you.
we thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Bobby. You continue doing what you're doing. You know, each of us plays a role, and if we're faithful in trying to help people, you help some people, I help some people, and we're God's representatives trying to help people know God and know each other. So let's stay with it, okay?
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Man, I could just chat with him all day long. He's such a nice guy. If you ever get a chance to go to one of his conferences, I highly recommend it. Thank you, Dr. Chapman, for hanging out with us today. So, we want to give away 5 of Dr. Chapman's books, When Sorry Is Not Enough. And so this is how we're going to do it. Share this video to 10 people on Facebook, and then send an email to us, and just let us know your name and your mailing address and your phone number. And for the first 5 that share it to 10 people on Facebook and on their social media, specifically to 10 people, then we will get, if you're one of the first 5, we'll get that out to you. You can send your information to jacksdadblog@gmail.com. You can also send us a message on Facebook at Jack's Dad, also Instagram and Twitter, Jack's Dad Blog. So, but if you want to win one of Dr. Chapman's books, When Sorry Is Not Enough, simply share this video when we talk about this book, When Sorry Is Not Enough, to 10 people on Facebook, and then shoot us an email to jacksdadblog@gmail.com. Man, how awesome is this? I love getting to do this, and I'm so glad you can come along on the journey with us. My name is Bobby Lanyon. This is Virtual Coffee with Jack's Dad. Subscribe, and so you won't miss a single episode. And stay tuned, because we have more incredible guests coming out each and every week. Thanks very much. Bye.